You're listening to Voices of Customer Experience. I'm your host, Mary Drumond, and on this podcast, we shine the spotlight on individuals who are making a difference in customer experience. We also proudly bring you the very best of customer experience, behavior economics, data analytics, and design. Make sure to subscribe or follow us on social for updates. Voices of Customer Experience is brought to you by Worthix. Discover your worth at worthix.com. Today we welcome an amazing guest, Professor Dr. Philip Klaus. Professor Klaus is widely considered one of the lead global customer experience strategists. He's the founder of Dr. Phil Klaus Associates Consulting and Professor of Customer Experience and Marketing Strategy at the International University of Monaco. Professor Klaus is a frequent keynote speaker at public and in-company seminars and conferences around the world and best-selling author of Measuring Customer Experience. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on. And once again, I've got James Conrad co-hosting with me today. Good morning, James.
Good morning.
Thanks for being here. So, Professor Klaus, can we start off for our listeners' benefit, just having you introduce yourself and your work and your mission for customer experience?
Yes, of course. Thank you so very much for your kind words and kind introduction. Approximately 12 years ago, I did an MBA in the United Kingdom. And while I was doing my MBA program director told me that I should become an academic, which at this time I thought was a ridiculous proposition, to say the least. Because we academics have a reputation that we tell managers things they already know in a language they can barely understand. But the one point that hooked me into it was my program director, Dr. Malcolm Kirkup, telling me, you always think about things very critical. And as a manager, you know that most of the frameworks, concepts, and models introduced to you as a manager only work for a specific period of time. They have an expiration date, meaning we get some data, we get some insight, but after a while we cannot know is the relationship still there, or what most managers and probably a lot in the audience experience is the famous, we got great customer satisfaction ranking and people love us, but still they go somewhere else to purchase the next time. How is that even possible? And he said, if you do a PhD and become a scholar, you can dedicate your life and all your time to find out what is this that really drives consumer behavior. And you know what? They even pay you for it. While the payment idea was rather ridiculous in comparison to managerial salaries,
Yes.
I soon got hooked on the idea that taking time out and dedicating to a question that I always wanted to have answered, which is why consumers, customers, or clients do the things they do. Why do they choose our services, our products, our offerings over somebody else? And how can we measure that in a way that it leads to improvement inside the firm that gives us a triple win situation, meaning if you deliver great customer experiences, customers should be happy. As a customer, what would you rather have? A good or a bad experience? Good experience. Okay. If customers have good experiences, your employees, the front line, will also have good experiences. So if they are happy, you are happy. As a manager, you're going to be happy. And sooner or later, therefore, all your shareholders and your big boss should be happy too. And I said, there must be something, some way, something that's better than measuring service quality and customer satisfaction that leads us there. And this is what I dedicated the last 12 to 15 years of my life with my colleagues to find out what is customer experience, why is it important to the company, and how can we manage it in a profitable way. So despite me being a scholar and academic, the entire focus of all our research is what can a manager do with this on Monday morning to make his firm, his department, or his conglomerate more profitable. So it's very applied. It's not customer experience. It's not about huffy-puffy, delighting, or whatever you want to talk about, is customer experience is done correctly, meaning your customers will buy more and more often from you versus your competitors. It's that simple.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jean Bliss herself, when she was on the podcast last season, she said, customer experience is a growth strategy. And that's something that a lot of people get wrong. They think it's this, methodology, et cetera, but it's a growth strategy. And when done right, it's profitable to businesses.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did a piece of research, or an ongoing research, so to say, by looking at customer experience programs from over 1,300 companies worldwide, which differ and have the anchor points of the scale from B2B to B2C, everything in between, C2C, governments, and it can be a company in the state of Washington that does software with 10,000 employees to an Indian law firm with 50 lawyers specialized in business law. And one thing we find out, there are not many who do it right, but the ones that do it right outperform the others by 600%, 600. So if you do it right, it is definitely profitable. However, every time we present that to a board, the next question of the CEO is, of course, how do I become one of the 600, the one that outperforms everybody else? And the question is, well, statistically speaking, the chances that you become one are rather low. However, if you align what you already have, meaning your resources, your capabilities, towards that goal, you will become more profitable. And believe me, I'm sitting in the boardroom. If I tell a CEO on a C-level basis that I can increase our profitability by 0.3%, hallelujah, I'm the hero in the boardroom.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you don't have to go to the 600. I say, even if you don't go there, just going in the direction will help you to do the right thing.
Yeah, Professor Klaus, this is something that's fascinated me as you're talking about this. It's I think it's music to our listeners' ears, and a lot of people can relate. Everybody agrees that customer experience is important. And there was the Gartner study recently that, the number was something like 89% of companies believe now that they're competing on customer experience as we have value proposition, commoditization. But yet we have so few companies, to your point, and to studies that have followed up Capgemini, that show that only about a third of companies feel they're really doing a good job. And the reality is it's probably even half of that number if you talk to their customers. Why do you think, if we have all this information, if it's clear, the data is clear of how we can drive, it just makes sense, customer experience, happy customers, happy employees, happy stakeholders. If we all get that, why do you think we're still in a situation that most companies aren't delivering? What's the barrier? What do you think is getting in the way of companies sort of embracing this and taking it on?
Well, excellent question. And it's not just a barrier, it's barriers.
Right.
We clearly speak here of multiple hurdles. If you look at the 1,300 companies we look at, and the most of them is what we call preservers. These are companies that believe they do customer experience, but belief belongs in the church, not in management practice. Yeah. So what they do is what the English call, they put lipstick on a pig. So what before was your customer service manager is now your customer experience manager. Instead of measuring customer satisfaction, we now have the Net Promoter Score. And we do have a website that talks about our mission, about customer experience. This will never work. Most companies talk customer experience, but they don't practice it because they just take shortcuts. And these shortcuts, my goodness. Just think about Net Promoter Score. Colleagues of mine wrote an article at the early 21st century, clearly showing that Net Promoter Score has no correlation to building value for the firm. And they were crucified about that. And I said, don't kill the messenger. We are scientists, we just look at the data. And there's no proof that this thing has any correlation to what consumers do. So why in God's name is everybody measuring it and everybody using it as the key KPI? Why? Because managers are lazy, Give me a silver bullet. Give me a proxy. Give me something. If you say you would probably someday in the future recommend me and give me a 9 or a 10, that should have some value. But if you ask us as a consumer, it has no value at all. Does it make a difference if we give a 9 or a 10? The guy was pretty much begging me for giving it. He was not screwing me over, so give him a 9. Will I ever recommend this company? Hell no. So measuring it is one point. The second thing, of course, is do we practice what we preach? One point is outsourcing customer experience. Because as a manager, we are driven by one thing. Let's think about it. If we are, let's hypothetically say the people who are listening right now, you are CX or marketing C-level managers. Okay. Mm-hmm. So your average lifespan in a company is between 3 to 4 years. So you have very little time. Oh, there you go. It's even shorter depending on the industry. So you are there. So what can you do in 2 to 3 years to make you employable or leave a legacy for your next job? If somebody now comes to you and says, okay, customer experience is complex. It's messy. But if you do it right and you do it longitudinal and you change slowly towards it, someday in the future, you will outperform everybody else. What do I say as a chief marketing officer? Well, I'm not going to get anything somewhere down the line in 10 to 15 or 20 years. I need an impact now. And my CEO will never support me for that. So I look for proxies for something I can boost up. A net promoter score, hey, that's a great thing. Look at our NPS now. I boosted in 2 years. I did something, cannot be bad.
Yeah. Professor Klaus, one thing, do you think that part of the success of Net Promoter Score has to do with the fact that it fit really well into at least the North American way of doing business, which is driving quarterly results?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And think about it. You give me the right carrot, the donkey will follow. If you give me the carrot, I have to improve every 3 months for my quarterly reports. So the shareholders are going to be happy. The analysts are going to be happy. Then I focus on this without looking farther ahead. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, and let me put it in this way. We call these people who outperform others by 600% Vanguards. And if you look at customer experience Vanguards, one thing is very clear. They got it right from the start. There are not many companies who became Vanguards. Most of them started right away. And the one who are moving towards it, they have 2 strategic options. Option number 1 is you do business as usual. Going from quarter to quarter. And then one day you're going to wake up and say, this competitor came out of nowhere and took all our customers away. How did that happen?
Right. And they disrupted the industry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, disruption. Give me a bloody break, If I hear one more disruption, what's disruptive about somebody realizing that there's a better way to do business for a customer? That's not disruptive. That's common sense and being smart. That's not disruptive. Just somebody saying, I believe we can do that better. Hello? Yes, of course we can. Go and do it, and off we go.
Voices of Customer Experience is brought to you by Worthix. If you're interested in customer experience, behavior economics, or data science, Follow Worthix on social media or subscribe to our blog for the best content on the web. I wanted to kind of establish, go onto common ground as to, this is one of the things that you talk about in your book, how nobody agrees on the definition of customer experience.
People always ask me, how do you define customer experience? I said, I don't define it. Your customers define it. Not you, they, and you have to know how you fit into their lives. And this is, again, when you look at companies, they always talk about customers like an alien life form out there. We cannot explain what they do, and when I held a keynote speech, I always say, do you have a mobile phone? And they said, yes. I'm like, turn it on, go on the camera function and look at selfie. This is a customer. You think what you love or hate, your customers will not love or hate? What is the challenge for a manager in the moment they step into the office to disconnect from everything that drives their behavior? I just sometimes don't get it. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? What was your last experience with that? Was it a good one or a bad one? A bad one. Will it influence if you purchase there again? Yes, of course. Okay. So what do you do in your company that's similar to it? Oh, I never looked at it this way. I'm like, really? Come on, people. Everybody talks customer experience centricity, but no one does it. The best ideas with every company I work with come from customers and the frontline employees. But of course, the question is, how is it possible that the people who at the end of the day are responsible if we buy or come again, meaning the people we call up when something is wrong, or the people in the store? How come that they are the least educated, the worst appreciated, and worst paid in the company? How is that possible? Because of what you mentioned, the quarterly thinking, cost cutting. But if we cost cut, it should be better. And you wouldn't believe the stuff I hear from companies, when they say, oh, we get more and more calls in our call center about complaints. You know what we're going to do, Professor? We hire more people for the call center, so people don't have to wait a minute and only 30 seconds. And I said, how about working on the cause why people call in the first place? Oh, how novel. Yeah. I mean, the things we do as scientists, and we tell you, it's nothing new. In 1815, in the middle of the 19th century, a French economist say, people don't buy products, people don't buy services, they buy something to get an experience. There are very little companies who realize that people buy something to have something in their life better, simpler, or more effective. They're looking at products and services instead of how does it fit into the life of my customer. I mean, don't get me started. But the great thing is, because we are all so poor at it, in the valley of the blind, the one-eyed is the king. I hear so many companies who always talk about delighting customers. I said, the only thing that you can delight is delight your company into bankruptcy. What you need to understand is customers will choose you if you, pardon my French, don't piss me off. Customers choose not about, oh, how delightful that was, or like, you upset me less than this one, therefore I choose you. So if we would all agree that we work on avoiding bad experiences, our life and the world would be a better place.
Interesting.
And this is
right.
what
It's
I
taking
see.
Baby steps now.
Oh, baby steps. I mean, baby steps because we have so many agendas we have to juggle. We have so many internal hurdles to overcome. And one thing that companies need to understand, A, there's no silver bullet for customer experience. B, it's messy because human beings are messy. And the challenge that not only I, but all the companies that work with me and use my tools have, is they bring something that's messy and more complicated. But the insights you get out of it are way more profitable. But to get over this hurdle, to have a manager that says, we really don't know what really drives our consumers to choose us over the others. And in order to find that out, we have to do more than a focus group and collect a net promoter score, which, by the way, relates to 1% of the purchase decision. That's a scary one, Even if you get NPS 100% right, you still miss 99 possible reasons why this customer choose you over another. This is just heavy. So the only thing is, in this case, either you accept it's messy and you do something about it, and then you come up on the other side, or you wait until somebody disrupts your industry and takes your customers.
Absolutely.
We
talk about that all the time.
It's not 50 shades of gray. It's black or white. Swim or sink, Sorry.
If you want to understand more about the science behind customer decisions, follow our blog at blog.worthix.com or find Worthix on your favorite social media. Getting your CX project off the ground? Start with the right foot by downloading our CX guides, ebooks, and playbooks on worthix.com today. The customer experience industry, we keep hearing people saying, we need to take a holistic approach to customer experience. Do you think that's maybe the main problem that we have right now? It's become so holistic to a point where it's just generic?
Oh, that's a very good point. I love the way you put that. Holistic equals generic. As scholars, we always say it's the theory of everything. If you look at whatever body of McKinsey, Bain, or whatever they put out there, every single touch point is important. I'm like, okay, if I bring that to a CEO as a manager and he says, how are we going to do CX? And I tell him, yeah, everything is important. You say, thank you so very much. Why do I pay you? What they need to do is set priorities. And this is, for example, where the measurement, this was the reason why we developed for 5 years a measurement of customer experience quality, that you can go out and measure all facets, the holistic experience, but not just to say, yeah, it's holistic, but to say the really important stuff is A, B, C in this context at this time. I don't need managers to do everything. And it's, think about it. If you have 25 potential drivers of behavior of your main customers group, the people that you're really after, 25, and you find out only 3 of them are really heavily driving their behavior, why bother with the 22 others? Why invest a single penny in any kind of initiative and pilot study that might lead there? But what you need is the insight to know what drives customer behavior in the first place. Otherwise you end up with things like journey mapping. A customer journey. A customer journey has nothing to do with the goal I have to get out of it. I was recently at a company who set me in a beautiful conference room, 20 meters by 5 meters, which had their journey mapped out around me. And I don't know how much money they paid for it. And they said, Professor, at this point, from 1.2 million, only 150,000 sign up on the website. What's wrong with that point? I'm like, nothing wrong with that point. Thanks a lot for pointing that out. But there are another points way before and way after that will influence your decision there. We never thought about this. I know you can say holistic, but holistic is rubbish. Yes, there are things, but you as a manager need to make it manageable. And this is what we are doing. We say, these are the 3 things that really make a difference if the customer chooses you over somebody else. Why don't you focus on this? And by the way, customer experience also has a bad reputation because everybody thinks customer experience equals investment. No, if you look at the other 22 points and you figure out they do not influence consumer behavior, why invest money in it? You know, one clever CEO that we presented our research to says, you know what we're going to do first? All this budget we invest here in digital initiatives do not make any difference if people choose us over another. Is that correct? I'm like, yeah, that's what your customer said. He said, okay, I take this money and put it just on the bank. We just increased our profitability by 1%. Hallelujah. And I'm like, right. Finally somebody who sees the bigger picture.
Yeah. I think you mentioned in your book there was a telco CMO that sort of felt that they already knew what customers wanted. And I've experienced this as well. I can remember years ago in the automotive industry talking with CEOs about, fuel efficiency and how they told me, we already know what customers want. It's all about style and performance. Nobody cares about fuel efficiency. And this was decades ago. But I think a lot of people at the top, as you talk about, that are far from the front lines, think they know what customers want. And they typically, I think you mentioned, they come back with cheaper, faster, and more reliable. So, how does that help anybody? And how do we break down some of those barriers?
Some of these barriers only can get broken down. When I look at companies now, look at what kind of people are getting hired today in marketing position and business development position, etc., etc. They are great at analytical skills, which is marvelous. Everybody loves big data. When I hear the word big data, it just raises my heart rate immediately to 170. Because data is not big, it's not small, it's just data. Every company I work with has massive data. They can swim in it, the whole company if they want to. But when I ask them, do you have any insight, something that's actionable? Then they're like, what do you mean? I said, okay, you tell me what your customers are doing, how they are doing it, when they are doing it. Do you think there's a big question missing? And they're like, yeah. Why they are doing it? I'm like, hallelujah. Do you have any data why people are doing what they do? That was not the question. We never looked at this. And why, when they think about demographics or matching hits, matching cookie data from Google, etc., etc. I mean, it's great that we have technology. Don't get me wrong. It can only be an enabler. If I have all the real-time data in the world, but I don't know what to ask for, then all the data in the world doesn't do me any good. Companies are not good anymore in asking what they actually want because they are not exploratory. They don't go out and ask their customers really with a blank sheet. Why do you buy from us and why do you buy from others? Instead, they come with a survey that says tick a box here and there so we confirm what we already know.
Yeah, I wanted to, that was like my main question for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to cut you off really quick, but when you conducted your research in this book, you did not start off with a hypothesis. You started off with data collection. And I'm not a scientist. And for me, I always found it so weird that market researchers start off with a hypothesis because for me, that's bias. I could be wrong. I'm not a scientist, like I said. But for me, that's injecting so much bias into the research that you're possibly ignoring what actually matters to the customer because you have an agenda.
God bless you. I couldn't have said it better. Hypothesis testing is a good thing when you know already what you're talking about. If I say this company, I have now a new, let's say I work in malls, in shopping malls. I have retail little shops in shopping malls. So I put it in a new shopping mall and I believe the hypothesis is because that's allocated somewhere else that people will buy more of this product, more affluent versus this. That's a hypothesis I can test. But with customer experience, I said, everybody talks about it, but nobody really knows what it is. So the only one who can tell me what it is are the bloody customers, aren't they? Mm-hmm. So we went out and just asked them, tell us the entire story. your entire experience from the first moment you thought about buying something or needing something. How did that start? How did it trigger? How did you select? How did you collect information? How you decided? And once you decided, how was the purchasing process? How was the aftercare? So all of this, after this, when did you buy again? Did you go through a similar process? Did it influence you? And based upon all this that we had, we came out with over 300 possible components of the customer experience, 300 of them. So you're like, of course, that's a mess, and no company can work with 300 possible reasons. So what we did then in the next stage, say, okay, you tell me in a non-quantifiable way, these are possible reasons. Now I need you to quantify which one really was the most important one in making your decision to purchase or not purchase with this company versus another. And then you have statistical tools to do that. I'm sure our fellow colleague knows more about that than I do. So more about the details, but we can statistically prove which one of them are really relevant and which one are more like hygiene factor or in a zone of tolerance, meaning if it's there, okay. If it's not there, doesn't change my opinion. So we came with 25 key components that every customer experience, no matter B2T, B2B, B2C services, from wealth management all the way to buying your toothbrush or toothpaste, are there. And then we used them, and we found out that the traditional idea of context, people always think everything is context specific, but that's rubbish. The way you choose, for example, your partner is the same way you choose your car or your toothpaste. Why? Because the things that you value and that are important to you are not just valuable in one part of your life, but in all parts of your life.
Right.
So based upon this, some things are more or less relevant for a context or whatever it is. But it's 25 possibilities. So it's not one thing and one outcome. So in order to answer the why, you have to dig deeper. And if you don't dig, you will always fall short. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit evangelistic about it, but it's
it's wonderful. It's great.
I mean, the thing I don't want, we all remember CRM, don't we? You know,
Yes.
CRM is a great idea in theory. Build a relationship with your customer, get to know them. The more you get to know them, the easier it is to cater to their needs. Hey, great idea. Whoever came up with that? Scholars, of course. No. But then we took it in an application and we sold software. And now CRM, when you tell a CEO about CRM, they said, yeah, I bought a software package which I had to upgrade every 3 years, and I still don't know why we wasted all this money on it. And I don't want customer experience to become the CRM of the 21st century. And let me be
Absolutely,
quite honest.
because you've dedicated your life to it, no?
Yeah, and there are so many cowboys out there who jump on the bandwagon. I mean, our listeners, go on Google and type in customer experience experts. You probably get 60 million hits. So if you have a customer experience problem, just pick it up. Then we have the usual suspects, everybody jumping on the bandwagon, every management consultancy rebrand their models in order to fit now the customer experience. It's a mess, people. I mean, really. It's like after 89 when the Soviet Union broke down. The first people who went to the East were the people who were the crooks here. And I have the feeling that all the crooks of marketing ended up in customer experience now.
Yeah.
I think you might be onto something.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. The self-proclaimed experts, my goodness, don't get me started. You know, that's a whole different can of worms we don't want to open there. Yeah.
Well, Professor Klaus, I have Honestly, I have 3 pages worth of material that I'd like to talk to you about. So I want to go ahead and extend an invitation for you to come back on here for season 3 so we can keep talking about these things.
You're most kind. Thank you.
Because I still have so many questions to ask you when we're running out of time. But before we wrap up, can you tell our listeners if they want to hear more from you, if they want to stay in touch with you and continue listening to what you have to say and your vision on CX, how can they follow you? How can they find that information?
I'm a social media, how shall I say, novice is not even the word for it. I always love when people connect with me on LinkedIn. There's only one Professor Dr. Klaus out there. Connect with me on LinkedIn, and this is where I post our newest research, what we're doing. I have a Twitter account, but I have like 300 followers. Don't even bother about this one. And let me put it this way. I'm very poor on getting the message out. I believe in the pull motion. I believe if somebody is interested what I have to say, they will find me and they get in touch with me. And as academics, we probably can do that because we get paid by a university. But unlike a business, no, you can buy my book, Measuring Customer Experience, on Amazon.
It's a great book. I recommend it.
Oh, you're most kind. Thank you so very much. It's for those of you who don't have a lot of time, it says on the front pages, skip to chapter XYZ. And just go from there. If you're not too interested in the history and everything that goes with it, there's like a shortcut.
The history is great.
Yeah,
I love the history. So read the history and then skip to chapter XYZ, because the what I like about the history is one thing that you said, where we start where others left off, and you get a head start. So by going through all of that history and determining where previous academics came or the level that they reached before you began studying, it gives you a head start. You don't have to go back to the beginning, right? You can start where they left off, right? And that's really amazing for me.
Yeah. I leave that as your recommendation, so we have option 1, option 2.
Okay, so I recommend that you read the history.
Okay, whichever customer experience or reader experience you prefer, is fine with me. I leave it up. Like so many companies say, we are great at customer experience. And I always say, you have no clue. The only one who can decide that is your customer. So
there you go. I'm your reader. I'm the right authority here.
There you go. Buy a sample size. But no, read my book and connect with me on LinkedIn, because there I always post what we are up to.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, gentlemen. Professor Klaus, I can't thank you enough. James, thank you for being my wingman here and having my back with a corporate experience.
My pleasure. Pleasure.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to reaching a fellow CX, how shall I say, enthusiast.
Thank you for listening to Voices of Customer Experience. If you'd like to hear more or get a full podcast summary, visit the episode details page or go to blog.worthix.com/podcasts. This episode of Voices of Customer Experience was hosted and produced by Mary Drumond, co-hosted by James Conrad, and edited by Nick Gomez. Blog copy and summary by Emma Waldron.